Welcome to Doom Debates. I'm Liron Shapiro. Today I'm going to be reacting to David Shapiro. He posted a YouTube video yesterday called Pausing AI is a Spectacularly Bad Idea, Here's Why. I haven't really looked into David Shapiro until now. Apparently he's an AI optimist. He's been running a YouTube channel for a few years. He's up to 158,000 subscribers, so pretty influential, I guess. We're just going to be taking this video on its own terms without other context, and I'm going to be arguing the position of yes, we should pause AI. Let's pause it. It may be a spectacularly bad idea, but it's the best of a bunch of bad choices that we have. All right, let's dive in. Here's David Shapiro.
All right, so this is Eliezer Yudkowsky, who is, as his own tagline says, the original AI alignment person. He's been on the TED stage, and he basically says there's no way that you can avoid super powerful AI killing everyone. And as time has gone by, I've become more skeptical of this message. But what I want to point out is the little stop icon beside his name. Now, there is a movement of people that will have either the stop symbol or the pause logo emoji beside their name, and this is all emblematic of the pause movement.
Hell yeah, pause AI, or should I say, pause AI.
And we'll talk a little bit more in just a second, but I want to spend a little bit more time talking about Eliezer specifically. Now, this is someone who is very highly respected. He's been on the TED stage. But by his own admission, he doesn't know that much about math or coding.
What? No, he knows plenty about math and coding. I don't want to bust out some mad credentials, but I do actually have a bachelor's degree in computer science from UC Berkeley and a minor in mathematics, almost double majored. And I can tell you from my perspective, Eliezer knows his motherfrickin' math, okay? He's actually published papers within metamathematics, within formal logic, has to do with Loeb's theorem, and an extension of Gödel's work about systems talking about whether they're provable. Point is, this is graduate level stuff. I actually took a graduate level course in it myself. It's something that I know a little bit about, and I can just tell you, from my perspective, as somebody who knows a decent amount of serious math, not a ton, but a decent amount, I can tell you, I'm looking up at Eliezer, he knows a significant amount of hard math that's a greater level than mine. So I'm not saying he's like Terence Tao, I'm not saying he's like the biggest math genius in the world, but he sure knows a lot more math than almost everybody I see in the whole AI discourse, okay? And the explainers he's written are the most crystal clear explainers that have helped me relearn some of these complex math subjects. So I think it's way underestimating Eliezer to just say, oh, by his own admission, he doesn't know math and coding. I'm sorry, that's not the case. So this is really off to a bad start.
And so his decision framework that led him to the conclusion that AI will kill everyone is basically his own logic.
David Shapiro, I've never heard an argument from you before. This is the first content from you that I've watched. But the argument you're coming out of the gate with is that Eliezer is using, quote, his own logic to make the AI risk argument because he, quote, doesn't know much about math or coding. That just seems like a bad faith way to start the argument, but go on.
So there is a movement in modern contemporary philosophy which basically says you don't need any epistemic or ontological grounding. You only need pure logic.
Bro, there's a giant series on Less Wrong written by Eliezer, which is titled Highly Advanced Epistemology 101 for Beginners. Excellent series, by the way. So you're coming out here accusing Eliezer of not needing epistemic or ontological grounding. There's reams and reams of Less Wrong posts that are explicitly teaching you epistemological and ontological grounding for what's to come. What planet are you arguing from here? Like, maybe you're about to bust out a good argument, but you're tripping over the most basic facts about what you're arguing against. Like, these are not accurate statements to be making about Eliezer Yudkowsky. Like, do a little bit of research here.
And having read some of his work, he's a good rationalist. He's good at using words to construct arguments.
Wow, way to box him in. All he can do is use words to construct arguments. So if all you can do is use words to construct arguments, I guess you definitely can't,
But without any grounding, it's basically just kind of, trust me, I used my imagination, bro, energy.
All right, I'm looking forward to hearing some better grounding.
And remember, I'm someone who took the AI safety thing very, very seriously. I've even written a book about it. But as more time goes by, the less concerned I am about AI safety. Humans are the bad guys. It's not the machines that we build. When you look at what AI can do today, it's not particularly a threat. And even when you project out what it might be able to do, and emphasis on the word might, you have to make a lot of assumptions to say that AI is going to kill everyone. Should we pause AI? The TLDR is no.
Counterpoint, yes.
What I'm referring to here is the Pause Giant AI experiments that came out from the Future of Life Institute on March 22nd, 2023. So that was, what, a year and a half ago? This was that landmark letter by Max Tegmark and a few others that basically said, we need a 6-month pause. Now, of course, that 6-month window has come and gone, which I kind of thought that people would like get over it, by then, because pausing is what would we achieve during a pause? But people are still calling for it, and I'm like, why are people still calling for it?
The best justification I heard for the 6-month pause letter is that we need to prove ahead of time that we have this alarm we can sound, and it'll actually make people pause AI. Because regardless of whether you think today is the day to pause AI, or you need a stronger warning shot, maybe we'll never pause AI, but just in case it does something really scary, maybe one day we should pause AI. We need to show that we can pause AI if we need to pause AI, because that's the problem, right? Is we're currently going forward without the ability, without the coordination, without the technical systems in place to pause AI, to shut it all down across the world, to prevent further research. So we're walking into this blind cave with no ability, with no brakes, right? We've got a car with no steering wheel, with no brakes. We've just got the accelerator. And so the 6-month pause was just supposed to be a symbolic wake-up call of like, hey guys, you may not want to pause for 6 months now, but what's the plan? And if there is no plan, maybe we should be careful. And maybe being careful starts with pausing for 6 months now, because after all, there has been a breakthrough right now, right? It was around the time of GPT-4. So why don't we just study the LLMs we have while building the infrastructure to pause? Now, I agree this is all a little bit symbolic. It's not the most rational utilitarian action in the world to do a 6-month pause. So I get it, right? It's a little bit rough. I'm not saying that's like the ideal plan, the ideal proposal. What came right after it, I actually thought was a lot more straightforward and a bigger win. If you remember, what came right after the 6-month pause letter was that 1-sentence statement from the Center for AI Safety. Dan Hendricks, I think, spearheaded it. And that was just saying, hey, AI is a risk that we should worry about, similar to worrying about nuclear war. And that got major signatories on that 1-sentence statement. So if they knew that that was going to be such a big success, then I think Future of Life Institute probably wouldn't have necessarily gone so hardcore on the 6-month pause letter, right? I think we were kind of finding our legs under us, right, as the PauseAI movement, the different organizations that were worried about AI. So, it was kind of one thing to get attention, and I think we need to iterate on it, right? So that's my take on the 6-month pause letter.
Now, I have a pretty strong suspicion as to why people are calling for it, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the video. But my point is that it's been a year and a half. People are still, putting the pause icon, putting the stop icon, as if this one solution is a magic bullet.
Yeah, we still think that every day we're still doing AI development is a day that we're stumbling into the attractor state, the point of no return. And we may already be past that attractor state, right? It may already be too late to pause AI, even if we try. So imagine like the road is kind of icy and you're like, don't worry, when I see the edge of the cliff coming toward me, I'm going to slam the brakes. But we may already have driven onto ice that's too downhill sloped, that's too slippery, that even if we slam the brakes now, it's too late. Or maybe the ice is starting, and that's why we need to slam the brakes, because we might actually stop before we go over the edge of the cliff. I mean, that's the kind of problem we're playing right now, right? Or like we're playing a deadly game of shuffleboard, where the closer you get to the edge, actually the better it is, right? The more technology you can have, the better medicine you can have, the better games you can have, and the better factories you can have. So it's kind of a game of shuffleboard. You want to get as close as possible without going over. But if you go over, the negative utility you get far outweighs by many, many orders of magnitude, right? The entire sum of the positive utility that you got. So that's the shape of the game that we're playing right now. So it's kind of weird to me that David Shapiro is marveling, oh my God, these crazy people who failed to pause AI for 6 months, why in the world would they want to pause now? It's like, okay, man, just keep driving on the ice. I guess that's a smart choice. I mean, I don't understand their position. I'm as bewildered by them as they are by me.
So the primary arguments in favor of the pause is that this is going to be a way to implement safety and control mechanisms. But again, we could have implemented safety and control mechanisms in the interceding 18 months. And they also tend to act as if there's been no progress on safety and control. They also want us to stop and consider ethics, which, by the way, there's a couple of machine ethics books that I'll put in the description. One is Weapons of Math Destruction, and the other is, I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyways, implement regulatory frameworks, societal impact, address power dynamics. But it's like I don't really see, like, some of these, sure, like, yes, time will play out, but again, you have to make a lot of assumptions about what AI will do.
Just to reiterate, when I'm advocating to pause AI, it's not because of this complex combination of factors. It's really just the simple visual that I described of there's an icy road, it's getting icier, there's the edge of the cliff, we're playing a deadly game of shuffleboard, we don't know when we can stop, we don't know how intelligence works. We're all surprised at how much smarter the AI is getting. Nobody predicted what it would be able to do this year. Nobody's confidently predicting what it'll be able to do in the next 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. We're venturing into unknown terrain, and there's no undo button. There's no, oopsie, let me try again, let me try the next iteration. And none of us have the intuition for building technology like this. This is not analogous to other technology that we've built. We've never built a technology that's surpassing the creators of the technology that are building it. In literally every way is where we're predicting this will go, right? And so it's kind of obvious when you spell it out like this, right? You don't have to overcomplicate it. That's why I want to pause AI. And it's unfortunate that I have to tell you, hey, I want to pause it today, because today still feels good. It doesn't feel like it's murdering anybody today, and I agree. Like, it's in a good place today. I agree. But some hacker, we don't know how quickly the hackers can get it from today's state or next year's state. We don't know how quickly that ice gets slippery and downhill, right? We don't know. So today, it doesn't seem to be more than 1 or 2 or maybe 3 decades away until the superintelligence explosion, right? Until the uncontrollable state. And so hitting the brakes now, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of margin of error, or maybe there's negative margin of error. I don't know. But like, I think you have to sacrifice some margin of error. You have to sacrifice a decade or however much if you want to potentially preserve the next trillion years, right? You have to make a little bit of a compromise. Unfortunately, you can't time it perfectly. So that's my pause AI argument, just to reiterate.
What I'm trying to say is that this is a natural experiment. And you can use all the forecasting and predictions and logical arguments and rational arguments, but until you have data, until you have actual data, you don't know what the impact is going to be. At a certain point, you just need to kind of find out.
Hey, it's this magic spell that keeps getting more powerful. I don't know what'll happen the next time we scale up the magic spell and summon something else. I don't know. I guess we just need to find out. Maybe it'll be the end of the world. Let's find out.
And this is one of the reasons why particularly Western societies have taken a much more reactive approach to legislation. Now, I will concede that Europe is a little bit more proactive in terms of how they approach legislation and regulation. But at the same time, like, we still need to have evidence-based and data-based arguments. And the fact that the pause movement is largely just rationalist argument-based actually really undermines it. Like, you gotta have some data, you gotta have some modeling in your frameworks.
He's throwing around a swirl of accusations here about how rationalists argue. In this case, he's saying that we don't use evidence and data, we just use rationality, this other third type of thing that's not evidence and data. Now, before, the words he used to accuse rationalists were that we're not grounding it in epistemology, which I pointed out was just factually inaccurate, given that Eliezer Yudkowsky has written extensively on the epistemology that he's using. Now, in this case, let me address what he's saying about, like, oh, we're not using evidence and data. This seems to be similar to an article that Tyler Cowen published a few months ago saying, like, where are the research papers? You know, where's the argument? How come they're just having it on forums and they're not mainstream? This, again, doesn't seem factually accurate. I mean, there are plenty of research papers in any kind of journal you want. You're going to see a paper there. We've got credentials now. If you look at, who's signing these pause letters, we got Jeffrey Hinton, Yoshua Bengio, we've got 2 Turing Award winners, Sam Altman, Dario Amodei, right? We've got the leaders of most of the top AI labs admitting to the threat. If you want to play the credentials game, it's just, I don't know how much I have to repeat myself. I mean, we are doing great on the credentials game, right? There's a lot of highly qualified doomers, and there, more of them keep coming out of the woodwork. You've got plenty of senators in Congress who are AI doomers, right? I mentioned you've got captains of industry that are AI doomers. And of course, you've got the majority of people in the world are AI doomers. So it's just kind of funny that some people keep trying to, like, box us in, like, oh, well, if you look at somebody who just argues based on rationality, who's just a nerd in their basement, maybe they'll be a doomer. It's like you're literally looking at the majority of people who are doomers, right? This is what a doomer looks like, right? I need a t-shirt like that and put it on, like, everybody. Okay, but, there's another point where if you want to be like, okay, where's the evidence? How can you have evidence for something that hasn't happened? Doom hasn't happened yet. Where's your evidence? Well, this is why rationalists have this whole framework on what evidence even means, right? Can David Shapiro rattle off the top of his head the formal definition of evidence? I can. Maybe he can. I don't know. I don't want to make assumptions. The formal definition of evidence is that which one hypothesis explains better than other hypotheses, in the sense of literally putting a prior probability on it higher than other hypotheses. I'm getting a little complicated now, but the idea is that, let's say you have 10 different hypotheses that you're considering might potentially explain the world, might potentially compress the world. You have 10 competing hypotheses, and they can all spit out a predicted probability of a particular world state. Like, let's say you're about to flick on the light in some room, and they all predict that you're going to see different things in the room. One of them predicts that you're going to see a bunch of gold in the room, and one of them predicts that you're going to see a tiger, right? They all make different predictions. So let's say you flick it on and you see 2 pieces of gold. So the higher a probability that they got to the exact state of you seeing 2 pieces of gold, you then propagate an update where you multiply it by this thing called the likelihood ratio, and you basically reward the hypothesis that did the best job of saying that reality was going to happen. It's almost like a prediction market. So anyway, there's a formal way to define evidence and then propagate it to your hypotheses, and then you'll have more and more accurate beliefs going forward. This is called Bayesian updating. It's a formal structure. When people come and accuse us of having no evidence, I covered this thoroughly in the Sayesh Kapoor episode from last week. I encourage you to take a look at that. They're usually talking about like a naive frequentist definition of evidence of like, hey, when's the last 10 times that the world ended? Show me like a streak of world endings, and then like take the numerator and denominator, like count up how many times the world ended, which is super naive, right? I went over a bunch of reasons, right? Like you can be a turkey who's getting farmed for Thanksgiving, and you can have a whole year where you don't get slaughtered, and then you get slaughtered. So whatever, so if you had 365 days of evidence of not getting slaughtered, it's completely worthless when you get slaughtered. Like something's fundamentally wrong with naive evidence, right? So the actual definition of evidence is like, show me your hypotheses and then show me them predicting the world state. When I'm an AI doomer, my hypothesis predicts stuff like technology is going to advance really fast. AI companies are going to make a lot of money. Why? Because my model contains a model of intelligence being this kind of general thing that once you get past a certain threshold, it's general. So you're going to make a lot of money by doing a lot of generally useful tasks, stuff like that. Those are details of my model that still give my model base points, that still give my model likelihood, even before the world has ended, because they compressed my description of reality, right? They explain things that I'm seeing efficiently. So it's possible for models to be winning points even if the world hasn't ended yet. In fact, that's the only possible thing, right? I mean, you're never going to be able to have naive frequentist evidence of literally the whole universe getting doomed, right? So anyway, I consider it a low blow, a really low blow, to David's exact quote of saying that rationalists don't use data and don't use evidence, but just use rationality. It's badly worded, it's inaccurate, and it's a low blow. It's almost an ad hominem.
But with last year with Sam Altman going to Congress saying, oh yeah, like AI could kill everyone. Like that was the level of credibility. But over time, over the last 18 months, this whole movement has not really been able to produce a whole lot in favor of saying, oh yeah, all the things that we prophesize, and it is a prophecy. So a prophecy is a faith-based prediction about what will happen in the future. None of it has really come to pass.
Faith-based is just such a low blow, right? It just doesn't have the integrity. Like, at this point, you're basically saying, Liron Shapiro, an AI doomer, you're using faith. You're not even trying to have a reason-based conversation, or, I'm trying to understand his ontology, right? Because he's tried to make a distinction between data and evidence and rationality, but it's not grounded. Oh, but it's faith-based, right? This is like the David Shapiro philosophical universe here. I'm trying to understand his distinctions. I'm quite confused, but I just think he's making low blows, right? Like, I think he's kind of getting close to disqualifying himself from serious discourse just to start off this low quality.
And they haven't been able to provide any more evidence to support this prophecy.
On what basis are you saying that doomers haven't provided more evidence? What would the world look like to you if doomers had provided more evidence that the world was going to end? If you just look at social proof, we're making constant progress on social proof, right? The Overton window is moving more and more toward being able to discuss AI doom. I mean, we saw the White House press secretary taking it more seriously, right? Compared to, there was like a funny clip where people were laughing about it a year ago, and then there was a clip where people were not so much laughing about it, right? They were keeping a straight expression, and now you've got SB 1047 that just got out of assembly in Congress, right? So you've got serious bills happening. It's like a regular discussion. the protest movement is slowly gaining steam. So in terms of the social proof aspect, the ball is definitely rolling, right? It's certainly not slipping back. The issue is not fading out. It's growing stronger, right? Now, of course, I would never tell you, hey, social proof is why you should be convinced about AI doom. That's not what we're here on Doom Debates to do. But it is one dimension, right? If we weren't doomed, it would certainly be a point in the favor of the non-doomer. It would be actual evidence to see the social proof going the other way. It would be one bit of evidence, if not a complete knockdown argument. But let's talk about the actual observations, right? So we're seeing models get better. We're seeing observations like, hey, the Math Olympiad, the IMO, right? It just got silver medal, second place in IMO. This was literally something that Eliezer and Paul Christiano made an informal bet about, where Paul Christiano said the odds are like 4% and Eliezer said the odds are 16%, something like that. Like, a smallish difference, but it was literally the only thing that they managed to compare a difference in predictions in. And Eliezer is now much closer to being proven right. I think maybe he said gold and not silver. But the point is, like, this is the kind of observation. This is where the rubber meets the road if you want evidence, right? Look at distinctions like that between what the doomers are saying is going to happen year by year and what the non-doomers are saying is going to happen year by year. The doomers aren't saying that much is going to happen differently year by year. So these predictions are actually hard. It's hard to make that fine distinction on a year by year basis, because most of what the doomers claim is a conditional prediction of, if AI becomes super intelligent and better able to maneuver the world, like better able to navigate causality, to make strategies over the domain of the physical universe, if it gets the mental capacity to play the universe as a video game better than the smartest humans can, then, conditional on getting to that state, then we will be doomed, right? It's like an if-then. And the problem is we don't have the if. And the reason I'm here talking to you is because we don't have the if, right? The moment we have that if condition, the internet will shut down and I won't get to make an episode of Doom Debates, unfortunately, right? So it's hard to look at the world before the precondition is satisfied and be like, okay, are the doomers right? Are they making an accurate prediction? That's why Eliezer Yudkowsky and Paul took the non-doomer side, and he said, I bet AI won't advance so fast that it'll beat the IMO in the next few years, and Eliezer said it did, and currently reality looks like it's hitting on the Eliezer side. That's just a small bit of evidence, right? It's hard for us doomers to make these super empirical tests before the precondition is met of, hey, when AI goes super intelligent, then we're doomed, because that's my strongest prediction. That's the strongest thing that can give me base points. So if you really want to prove me wrong, if you really want reality to say that Liron is wrong, then get us to a point where the AI is, you can input some future state that you want the world to get in, the AI will tell you how to get there, and yet the world doesn't end for humanity, right? Which, of course, that's a tall ask, but that would really convince me, right? So if we're talking here in 20 years and I'm recording an episode of Doom Debates and AI is able to make these really good plans that humans are like, wow, I couldn't have thought of that plan. That's a great plan. That's a great military plan. That's a great scientific plan. If the AI can get there and we're still here talking, at that point, then I hope that I'll have the integrity to at least be like, maybe I wasn't 100% wrong, but I was like very wrong, right? One of my most important predictions, my most solid prediction that we can't survive a superhuman planner, a superhuman goal achiever. If that prediction is that starkly false, I hope I'll have the integrity to come over here and admit that, right? Instead of trying to like change the subject, I hope I'll be like, here's a massive update. A lot of the stuff I was debating about, I was way off base. Okay, I will have the integrity to tell you that. But today in 2024, I don't get what David is saying of like, oh, the doomers haven't provided any evidence. Like, we do see little bits and pieces here and there of like, okay, you trained an AI, like, sure enough, it thought of ways to manipulate humans because manipulating humans is logically what an AI would do. I mean, what would it look like if you did see doom evidence short of like, oh wow, the world has started exploding? Like, I don't know what he's expecting, and he's not being rigorous. It's very easy and a very low blow to just be like, look, everything is great and the doomers are doomy and the world isn't doomy, so the doomers are having faith, and also the end of the world, that's religious. Everybody who's talking about the end of the world must be religious. I mean, this is just dumpster diving stuff, David. Okay, so let's try to do better.
So those are the primary arguments in favor. Now, the impact, though, this is really interesting because when this gigantic letter and everything else came, and there was also, what was it, the 22-word statement that like AI should be treated as an existential threat. It's like, this is the shortest letter possible. They have had their impact. They raised awareness. Sam Altman and Gary Marcus went before Congress and said AI is going to kill everyone. Eliezer Yudkowsky got on the TED stage and said AI is going to kill everyone. And then, like, that's it. we've got the public awareness, we got the support, we got the criticism.
We're getting there, but we don't have the public awareness. The public awareness will be when the average person on the street, when you ask them, hey, what's the most important, or maybe the top three even, the top three policy priorities right now of the world or of your government, and they better list pausing AI or regulating AI or something like that. Other than that, if they're not doing that, while experts are predicting, hey, 5 to 20 years until superintelligent AI, and they're not even saying that AI regulation is a top priority or maybe preparing to address the onslaught of AI, like something about AI, if that's not in their top three priorities, then we haven't raised awareness, right? The person on the street isn't quite there, but we're getting there. It just needs to happen as fast as possible, which is why I'm here, right? I'm helping on the awareness raising effort. But go on.
We've even had, an executive order, the longest executive order in history on AI. We've also had several landmark legislative and regulatory packages: the UK AI Act, the EU AI Act, California, what is it, Senate Bill 1048 or 1049, something like that. So they won. They got their point across, and it's time to move on.
But we're still burning the last wall that we have that's separating the present from the existence of superintelligent AI. The problem is getting more and more dire every day.
Now, what I wanted to also add is that there are ongoing efforts. So the active pause efforts. There's been protests. There's been legislation that I mentioned. I was actually not even aware of the protests until I did a little bit of research for this video. But there were protests a few months ago.
Wait, you're telling me somebody would go out and protest to pause AI, shout through a bullhorn?
What do we want? Save AI! When do we want it? Later! Do we want it next week? No! Do we want it next year? No! Do we want it in a decade? Maybe!
To demand stricter AI regulations. And of course, with the Hollywood writer strike over AI, no, it wasn't entirely AI, but that was one of the keystone points being debated. There's been a few events. There was the deepfakes of Taylor Swift. There was the Hollywood writer strike. So there's been a few other things where people are pushing back against AI, and that's fine. But that's what I mean. That is the organic process. What really concerns me about the pause movement is that it's a small but vocal minority that basically says, trust our logical reasoning, trust my imagination, and give me control of this narrative. If the data was there, and they would present it, but they don't have the data. All they have is logical arguments, and that's a beginning of a debate. But what really happens is events, real life events with real life people and real life data needs to be collected. That's how science works. That's how legislation works. So yeah, that's my ongoing criticism of the pause efforts.
So when a Hollywood writer is protesting AI, it's because they have enough evidence that the AI is going to take their jobs. So they've reached a threshold where they can say, hey, it's close enough to taking my job that I'm worried, even though it hasn't taken its job yet. So they have a short enough timeline where it's okay for them to predict that something that hasn't happened yet is going to happen. That's epistemologically valid for you. But when a doomer says, hey, AI is going to be more powerful than humans, and humans don't know how to control it, suddenly that's a massive leap. It can't be justified. It's just my own view, man. Right. And of course, you can turn it around. You can be like, OK, what's your counter argument? Right. So it's this common thing. It's the appeal to a default or the appeal to a reference class. He's in this position where he thinks the burden of proof is on the other side. But of course, these are symmetrical things from the perspective of actual epistemology. There's no such thing as the burden of proof. Every hypothesis can be in your set of possible hypotheses. You can have a prior probability. You can have a probability distribution based on Occam's razor. But it's not Occam's razor to think that superintelligent AI won't be more powerful than humanity. It's not Occam's razor. It's not a more compact description to say that humans maintaining control forever is a more parsimonious explanation of what's going to happen when we have superintelligent AI. No. So Occam's razor isn't something that you can appeal to. So why do you think you're appealing to a default? I think intuitively, what I typically hear is like, well, we're on a good tech trend, right? We're on a good human progress trend. So that trend is going to continue. But the problem is, if you zoom out, if you look at like all of history, there's constant extinctions. You've got like the medieval period, right? Things kind of go backwards compared to ancient Greece and ancient Rome, right? Civilization went backwards for a while. So you don't necessarily have an upward trend, right? Or you have the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. So that was the end of the line for dinosaurs. So now you have to zoom out and you can argue like, oh, well, life in general finds a way. So it's just like, wait, what's your reference class again? What's your default again? You really can hold up a mirror to the kind of vague statements that David's making about like, oh, they don't have data, they don't have evidence. You can hold up a mirror and you can be like, okay, the non-doomer claim, the claim that building superintelligent AI is safe. What's the data and evidence for that? It's in the future. You can't predict it, right? So we all agree that we're reverting to some kind of default, and now we're fighting over what the default is. So now, but it's a very important fight. So let's have the default fight. What are the terms of fighting over what the default is? How about rationality? How about formal structures of epistemology, like the idea of modeling Bayesian priors, modeling Bayesian updates, modeling epistemology, right? Like teaching somebody how to do epistemology in a very formal, robust way, not just an intuitive way. Oh, you mean the thing that Eliezer Yudkowsky has been pioneering for decades? Oh, is that maybe a good tool to have this debate? Oh, good thing somebody created the tool, right? Good thing somebody in a certain position also had the foresight to create the intellectual tools by which to have the debate if you want to have the debate well.
Now, speaking of arguments for or against, I feel like I am doing my best to give it a fair shake in favor of the pause argument.
This part was you doing your best when you said
it is a prophecy. So a prophecy is a faith-based prediction about what will happen in the future.
I wouldn't call that part a fair shake, but anyway.
But let's talk about arguments against the pause argument. So number one, it's impossible to enforce. And even the exponents of the pause argument said, oh yeah, this is wildly ineffective. Like, it's not possible to enforce it. And they know that they did it out of a sense of hyperbole.
I mean, it's not completely impossible to enforce, right? So the idea is we get on it, we start trying our best, we start putting radio receiver chips together with the GPUs, we do something, right? We make an attempt to monitor and control. We make it illegal, and then we go try our best to enforce it. Right off the bat, you get a lot of people who want to be law-abiding, who don't want to be criminals, scares them away. And then, yeah, you still have people who are willing to be criminals because they believe in the ideology so much, so maybe you reduce it by 90%, and it's hard to fight the last 10%, but the idea is that at least buys us a few years. And yeah, it's not enough. We're probably still doomed anyway. But unfortunately, if you think superintelligent AI is going to kill humanity, and you also think that it's really hard to prevent superintelligent AI, the solution isn't to just give up and let superintelligent AI be superintelligent.
I think it was even Max Tegmark who wrote the thing. And don't get me wrong, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Max Tegmark. I read his book, Life 3.0, and agree with him on every count. But at the same time, a global pause movement is physically impossible. We can't even get Iran to stop building its nuclear reactors. We can't get, information into and out of North Korea. Like heck, we're going to be able to create a global pause movement. That's just not going to happen.
The effort that the international community has made to stop nuclear proliferation is basically what I would call a success case. The closest thing I can point to a success case, even though the risk of nuclear doom is still super high. It's like 1% a year, in my opinion. Even then, I still think that it's been a massive success that it's not even higher, right? I think if nuclear proliferation had been allowed to continue more, then I think the risk would be multiple percent per year. And I think Iran getting a nuclear weapon right now, if they manage to go all the way, is terrible, right? I think it's highly destabilizing. So pointing to that and be like, hey, look, we're almost all getting doomed by this thing. How are we going to prevent also getting doomed by this thing? I don't know. We just have to try. Like, I agree. It's a terrible situation, right? But it's not like letting the doom happen is better, right? We're just screwed here, right? We got to deal with the hand that we got dealt, and it's a terrible hand. So how does that make you not a doomer to just notice that your hand is terrible?
And so when you keep arguing for something that is infeasible and ineffective, that is wasted time and energy. And then even if like we have control of ourselves, so we put on the brakes, it's just a completely suboptimal strategy. When one nation pauses, guess what? Nobody else is going to pause. They're going to say, oh, they're going to remember that Napoleon Bonaparte quotation, which is never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake, right? So, nobody's going to say, oh yeah, no, we should pause. This is why no nation, even the EU, even the UK, the US, no head of state or no State Department for any nation has said, oh yeah, pause is a good idea. Why? Because it is a spectacularly bad idea from a geopolitical perspective.
In this exact same argument, you could apply it to saying, hey, stopping nuclear proliferation is impossible. Anytime you tell nations to stop, they're going to ignore you, and they're going to realize they should build as many nukes as they can. And yeah, I mean, there's some truth to that, right? But at the end of the day, you still try, and we've still succeeded to some degree. And it was a hell of a lot better than not trying, compared to saying, okay, we're not going to try, it's a free-for-all, anybody can have nukes. It's a terrible idea, right? Just think about the risk of nuclear accidents, never mind nuclear war. In the case of AI, there's pretty obvious game theory where every country can, if they just understood the doomers' arguments a little bit better, they would realize, this thing is just death to anybody who builds it. So sure, we can progress research a little bit, and we can make our doctors make better diagnosis a little bit, right? We can have short-term AI, but the moment we get to AGI, super intelligent AGI, we're just all doomed. We don't get to win. We don't get to actually use it to win a war. We're just all doomed. AI wins and humanity loses. If they could see that perspective, I mean, that's the crux of the argument, right? So if you're accepting my premise that that's the correct inference, that we're all doomed, it's not like the game theory says you should build it. The game theory says everybody needs to run away, right? We're all in this together. Just like you can't win a nuclear war, it's impossible to win a modern nuclear war with multi-megaton nukes. Just everybody's doomed. The wind blows the damn radiation, right? It blocks out the sun for everybody. Everybody's crops are going to fail after nuclear war. Right? It's going to be a global collapse, right? And then, okay, some people on New Zealand in tunnels are going to survive, but it's not a good scenario, right? And it's the same thing with AI Doom, except just everybody dies, for God's sake. So if you want to talk game theory, it's not a problem of game theory per se. It's a problem of education. It's a problem of getting on the same page that the thing is a humanity killer. No nation wants to be the one to build a humanity killer. So we have to close the knowledge gap. We have to close the prediction gap. Again, it's not a fundamentally game theoretic problem the way you seem to be framing it right now.
Here's another way of looking at it. So just this is going to be appealing to the rationalist, because don't get me wrong, a lot of my friends are in the rationalist community, and I have a lot of respect for people in the rationalist community. So let's use their own method of argument against them. What is the opportunity cost of an AI pause? All of the resources, such as time, money, and social capital spent on advocating for a pause, could be better allocated to addressing nuanced safety concerns. The Nash equilibrium suggests that all players should continue advancing rapidly, as coordinating a pause is impractical.
Successfully pausing AI is incredibly valuable. I don't know this alternative you're describing of addressing nuanced safety concerns. That doesn't sound like as big a win as pausing AI. So now it comes down to the probability of pausing AI. And whatever that probability is, whether it's 1% or 5%, whatever it is, that's the only hope I see of surviving, right? I don't see us building an AI that doesn't kill us. I mean, there's a small chance, right? There's unknown unknowns, but it just doesn't seem like that's what we're actually building. It seems like everybody's just wishful thinking and being ridiculously reckless. So whatever our chances of pausing AI, that's the only way I can think of where I know how to not kill everybody.
When you know that one strategy is dead in the water, you should pick a different strategy.
Unfortunately, there's such a thing as being stuck between a rock and a hard place. When you know that one side is a rock, that doesn't mean you have to move to the hard place, because the hard place is also a hard place. So then, by your logic, now I have to move back to the rock, and then I have to move back to the hard place. At some point, I have to pick between a rock and a hard place, you see.
And so it's led me to wonder, and this is actually why I'm making this video, is because there are plenty of very intelligent, very well-connected people still out there, some of which are my friends, some of which are, that are people that I just see online, that are wasting time and energy and cognitive cycles on the pause argument. We have better ways forward. We know what we can do in order to advocate for safety. The pause movement had its 15 minutes, but it's time to really move on.
Again, I don't get this framing. Unless the average person on the street is saying, oh yeah, we should really be pausing AI, or pausing AI is one of the most important issues of our day. Until we get there, we haven't had our 15 minutes, man. I have not yet begun to fight.
And so from just a pure rationalist argument perspective, every moment of airwave, every tweet about the pause movement, every video, every debate.
Is he talking about me?
Every blog post, that mental energy could have been committed towards constructing a more nuanced, more progressive, and I don't mean progressive in the political sense, but I mean progressive in like something that has caught up with the times, constructing a better argument and creating a better coordination mechanism, rather than just the monotropic, AI is going to kill everyone, so turn it all off. Nobody believes that, and the longer that people keep saying that, the longer that AI safety people say AI is just going to kill everyone, turn it off, like, kind of the crazier they look, like the more fringe that they look.
It's always nice to get drive-by public relations advice from people who don't seem to understand our thought process or our priorities and hope that we'll fail, but I appreciate the thought.
And I'm kind of embarrassed for them because whenever I talk to industry insiders, they're like, yeah, that's not happening. Like, they literally are like behind closed doors, the pause people are being laughed at. And like, that kind of hurt. I hurt for them. Help me help you. I am trying to help here.
There's no doubt in my mind that there's been all kinds of rooms where people are laughing at PauseAI folks. There's also no doubt in my mind that there's been many of these private rooms where people are talking about how scared they are and how they wish the PauseAI folks would have a bigger influence. There is rooms of all types. The world is a big place. The industry is a big place. And so if you want to try to get an aggregate impression of what people as a whole think, well, we have tools for that, such as surveys and letters with a lot of prominent signatories. If you look at those sources of information, you see that there is a clear trend and even a clear majority among the people in surveys, if you're looking at the people as a whole, who are doomers. Okay, so you're now kind of casually appealing to like, aha, this group of industry insiders that I'm thinking of think that PauseAI is a joke. But I mean, the easiest thing to point to, I'll say this every chance I get, is Geoffrey Hinton, Yoshua Bengio, and the leaders of the AI labs, most notably Dario Amodei, but you've also got Demis Hassabis, Sam Altman, even to some degree, certainly people who work for Sam Altman, like, or at least used to work, right? Jan Leike, John Schulman acknowledges the problem to some degree. So these people don't seem to be laughing, or else they have extremely low integrity to be acting like they're taking it seriously, but then you're also asserting that they're laughing. I don't think they're laughing. Right? So again, I got to chalk this up as another low blow, very, very low blow from David Shapiro to just bust out, oh, people are laughing. Okay, Mr. Data and Evidence, right? You think an anecdote about some people in some room laughing, that's what you're going to throw out in your YouTube video trying to educate people about PauseAI, that some people are laughing? Yeah, not 100% of the world is convinced we need to PauseAI. That's why we haven't done it yet. But again, look at the trend, look at actual data, look at aggregates. The aggregates are in our favor. So let's talk in terms of aggregates. And then, better yet, let's talk in terms of the arguments, which is why I invite you to come on Doom Debates and have the actual argument. Tell me why you're a non-doomer. Tell me why you think super intelligent AI is going to go just fine. Let's have that discussion.
So what are some of the alternatives that we're talking about? Number one, I mean, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, particularly with my audience, emphasizing transparency, accountability, and public-private partnerships. That means more transparency between corporations, government, universities, and other nonprofits and third parties. We can get the benefits of AI and minimize the harms. We can invest more in researching mechanistic interpretability, which I don't even believe that that's necessary for AI safety, but a lot of people seem to believe that it is. And I don't think it would hurt to have mechanistic interpretability. But again, advocating for those individual nuanced things rather than the more hyperbolic, just shut it all down, like that's just not going to work.
So if we go back to the analogy of like you're driving your car, it's dark, it's foggy, you're starting to see some ice on the road, you think that there's potentially the edge of a cliff coming up, you don't know exactly where it is, so he's saying, look, don't just slam the brakes now for safety because the stakes are so high. What if we just work on building a little bit more traction for the tires? Not that much more traction, like they'll probably still slip on the ice, but just like build a little bit more traction. That's like a realistic goal. That's the best you can do, just a little bit more traction for the tires. And I mean, I guess if the option is that or nothing, sure, but the prudent option given the stakes is still to just pause, right? And it's just, that is a pretty bad consolation prize to work on a little bit more traction that's still not going to cut it for the ice. Right? So it's a matter of degree. I mean, if these other alternatives you were proposing, like, oh my God, more transparency, if more transparency or more mechanistic interpretability was actually going to prevent superintelligent AI from going uncontrollable and dooming the world, then great. Then I'd say, yeah, let's compromise and work on that. But it's not enough. It's a matter of degree. We're so outmatched right now. It's so intractable to hope that AI is going to go well. Humanity is going to be such a weak force compared to, a grown-up intelligence. The first time the universe has seen what an intelligence really looks like, right? I mean, there's different levels to this game of being an intelligence. Like we keep forgetting that, right? I come back to that point a lot, right? Is that like our feeble human minds, like all working together for a long time with a lot of resources, are barely getting it done running the world, right? So we're about to just be so vastly outmatched that unless we pause AI, I just don't see much of a hope. That's why I keep coming back to PauseAI.
So there's plenty of alternatives, and I would rather spend more time researching alternatives, such as what I call axiomatic alignment, which if you've watched my channel for any length of time, you'll remember this term. So axiomatic alignment basically says, let's find what is axiomatically true between human interest and machine interest and align to that. Basically, kind of where I'm at on this argument is that AI is going to force humanity to align itself. And I'll actually be writing a pretty extensive Substack article about that. I think it'll be called The Fourth Narrative. So anyways, hop over to my Substack and subscribe so you can see that when it comes out. But anyways, there's plenty of alternatives. This doomer narrative of the sky is falling is getting old, and it's not helpful.
I haven't followed David, so I don't know what he means by axiomatic alignment. I do think that when we pause AI, we have to be buying time to do something else, because we're not going to buy an infinite amount of time. We're probably only going to buy a few years, right? Maybe a couple decades. That seems like a best case scenario of how much time we could buy by pausing AI before secret underground researchers are going to make a bunch of progress anyway and get to super intelligence. So we better use that extra time wisely. And again, I'm not familiar with David's use of the term axiomatic alignment, but if you look at the MIRI program, the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, the type of research that they've done in the past, it's axiomatic. You could use that term axiomatic, probably not in the same sense as David, but you could they're talking about foundations of AI alignment. I call it intelligence theory. Like, what does it mean to be an intelligence? How does one analyze an intelligence? Well, we can analyze it as like, wow, this goal is getting hit. In the space of possible futures, somehow the future is being squeezed toward this goal. That's the kind of observation that you make in the field that I would call intelligence science. You don't even have to think about the algorithm that hit the goal. It's just interesting to categorize goal-hitting algorithms and then draw implications of them, such as if an algorithm is not goal-oriented, it might stumble into being goal-oriented, but not vice versa. There's kind of a one-way street, a one-way attractor toward algorithms getting more goal-oriented. That's the kind of insight you get when you study intelligence science. So anyway, it's just, I'm just riffing on his term axiomatic alignment to make the connection to, like, I do think a bunch of people should be working on fundamental principles of intelligence and what to expect when we have a really strong intelligence and how we could possibly hope to load goals into such an intelligence, right? How do we solve the inner alignment problem, the problem of having it do the thing that our function actually wanted it to do, instead of like learning how to pass our tests without learning our true complex function. Like, things like that are quite fundamental. They're open problems right now. We don't know how to load goals into the AIs that we're building. We're building them anyway. So yeah, I mean, look, this parallel track has to happen, but it doesn't mean I wouldn't say don't pause AI, work on this parallel track. No, I would say you have to do both. You have to work on the parallel track and you have to pause AI. Like, not pausing AI is just a terrible move any way you slice it.
And even many of like some of the podcasts that I've been on already have a more nuanced conversation. But yeah, so just let's move on, folks.
I would like to move on from not pausing AI. It's time to move on toward pausing it. See, framing is everything.
Another thing is regulatory capture. So the revolving door between big tech and government raises questions about oversight and accountability. This has only gotten worse since OpenAI restructured their board of directors. Now, you might be wondering, like, why am I bringing up regulatory capture in the pause argument? Who benefits? Who benefits from this pause narrative? Put it this way: if OpenAI and Microsoft and Google and Meta are the only ones at the table saying, "Oh yeah, AI is going to kill everyone. You need to regulate it," and by the way, ask us how to regulate it. I have been very suspicious of the doomer narrative of the AI is going to kill everyone, the sky is falling, shut it all down argument, because it plays directly into the hands of corporate interests. And I know for a fact that many of my friends in the AI safety community, they are not necessarily in favor of, corporate power anyways. I'm not saying that they're all, burn the corporations down, Arasaka is evil as well. Corporations need to be there. But my point is that the conversations that I have behind closed doors are far more nuanced, and we need to take into account the entire picture. The entire picture includes talking about regulatory capture. It includes talking about geopolitical contention around these issues. And that means looking at the possibility for another arms race, another Cold War, or even another hot war between great powers. So you can't just say, AI might kill everyone in the distant future, therefore throw everything into chaos today. That's kind of my chief message here.
Why are you misrepresenting the doomer's point? Nobody's saying AI might kill everyone in the distant future. We're saying if you look at expert timelines, roughly they cluster around 5 to 20 years. I personally like to widen my interval to more like 1 to 30 years. In that timeline, AI is going to go super intelligent in the sense of being able to achieve goals better than humanity. Doomers think that that's incredibly dangerous and also irreversible. So we see a short-term risk. We see a risk in this generation that all future value will be extinguished permanently. You just characterized my position as warning that AI is going to kill everyone in the distant future. Why would you do that? Why would you not characterize the other side on such a basic point?
Now, speaking of, this is something that I added to this slide deck last minute because as I've been paying more attention to this space, I realized that a lot of the Twitter accounts that have the pause icon after their names are only a few months old. And then I took a closer look and I said, oh yeah, I see what's going on here. There are troll bots out there, whether they're AI-powered bots or human-powered bots, doesn't matter. There are bot accounts, there are troll accounts that are in favor of the pause movement. And that's what really galvanized me to just make this video, to say, look, if there are troll farms out there that are in favor of the pause movement, that's really kind of all you need to know about it.
That's all you need to know about it? Surveys show that most people are worried about extinction risk from superintelligent AI. And experts are worried too. I don't want to say most experts necessarily because I'm not sure, but certainly at least 20 or 30% of experts are saying, hey, this risk looks significant. That's why so many people across industry and across academia signed that statement on AI existential risk last year. Not the PauseAI statement, but the, hey, this seems like a big risk comparable to nuclear weapons and should be taken seriously. You keep slipping back into arguments from lack of social credibility, and I keep reminding you, no, there's lots of social credibility, and the amount of social credibility that it's having has been on a growing trend. So if there's not enough for you today, wait till tomorrow. You'll probably see Jeff Hinton get even more adamant, for instance. You know, he recently said that his personal probability of superintelligent AI going wrong is more than 50%. But to be fair, he's updated it downwards to more like 10 to 20% because he's listening to his friends. But a world-leading expert, his independent component of probability is greater than 50%. So again, I just have to bring you back to the real social proof, because when you come here and say, hey, there's PauseAI bot accounts, that's everything you need to know. No, that's not everything you need to know. Why would you say that? Why are you saying stuff like that? People look to you to guide them on how they should be thinking about AI. It's not everything you need to know if somebody makes a PauseAI bot account. Oh, and one more thing. I've never seen a PauseAI bot account. I literally have no memory of ever seeing somebody tweet something where I click on their account and I'm like, who is this? What? A recent account? What? They seem to be a bot? I've personally never had that experience, and obviously I'm in the PauseAI sphere, so I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm more than happy to grant that somebody somewhere has made an army of PauseAI bots. I just don't see why you're acting like that's some sort of big gotcha that should sway people's beliefs. It's not.
And what I really hope that this video does is shine a light on that, because there are plenty of great people who sincerely believe that slowing research down, the decel movement, whatever you want to call it, would be a good thing. But consider why adversarial nations might be amplifying that narrative. That is cause that for me, that is cause enough to raise the alarm and pause and reflect on what is it that this movement is actually doing. Is it muddying the waters? Is it actually doing anything helpful? At this point, I think that there's an AstroTurf movement to either reinforce or reinvigorate the pause movement.
Can't help noticing a contradiction where at first he's saying, you guys had your 15 minutes, PauseAI is dead, the message of PauseAI just isn't resonating. And now he's like, if you notice that the PauseAI message is really out there resonating, like seems like it's everywhere, well, that's just bot accounts. It's like, okay, well, let's double down on it then, because you yourself were trying to help us out that maybe pause is a good tactic as long as the message resonates. Okay, well, let's keep resonating it. Again, I've never seen these PauseAI bot accounts. I certainly have never programmed one. I don't think it's worth the effort to program a bot account. Of course, I'm not even going to mention the incentives on the other side and why there's probably bot farms on the other side and there's corporate interests on the other side. I'm not here to talk about that BS. Doom Debates is just pointing out why PauseAI is a good policy and why AI is going to kill everybody. Right? I just think that it's such a core issue. It's such a strong argument that I think it's a waste of breath to be like, whose incentives are to say what? Try to survive. Focus on that. There's no need to go meta and talk about incentives. Sir, I certainly won't.
But yeah, if you notice those accounts out there on Twitter with the stop or the pause icon, check and see how old they are and see how small they are. And it's like, this is someone who's acting like they're an authority, but they've only been on Twitter for a few weeks or a couple months. Seems kind of sus to me. So yeah, I just wanted to call all this to your attention. My final thing is like, let's move on. The pause is an overly simplistic solution that fails to address the complex challenges of AI safety and may do more harm than good. The awareness has been achieved. It is an overly simplistic solution. It's potentially harmful, and I don't mean just to the AI safety movement itself. I have been on Twitter saying that the AI safety movement does appear to be cannibalizing itself because of the narrowing status games and the purity testing going on. So the AI safety movement is losing credibility. By the way, whenever I talk to academics and commercial insiders, there are better strategies that we can employ. There are better narratives that we can engage in, or maybe we need to craft entirely new narratives. Either way, it's all just a sign pointing that it's time to move on. So I hope that this video has the desired impact. But thanks for watching. Have a good one. Cheers.
Just to reiterate what we talked about, he says PauseAI has had its 15 minutes and it's played out. I disagree. I think it's a growing movement. I think momentum is on our side. He's saying that it's not going to work as a solution. It's too simplistic. I do agree that it's too simplistic and that we need to do something else too, but it's table stakes. Pausing AI until we have time to figure something out, figure out how to make safe superintelligent AI or else not make it at all, that's table stakes. So it needs to be pause AI and, not pause AI or. There is no or. We really have to pause AI if we want any hope whatsoever of surviving. And then to his last point, trying to play the social proof card because he's gone into rooms and talked to certain people who have laughed at it. Yeah, we know who it is, man. Jan LeCun, okay? We know these people exist. Jan LeCun laughs at AI enough for everybody, right? He's in a room laughing every day. So just Jan LeCun is single-handedly responsible for hundreds of closed-door conversations where somebody's laughing at AI. And that is why you need to zoom out and look at where the movement is going as a whole, look at where expert opinion is going as a whole, look at public opinion, and there's no doubt that it's getting more and more mainstream. Luckily, thank goodness, it's getting more and more mainstream to acknowledge that this is a real problem, and serious people have to solve the problem. You can't just ignore the problem. It's not just going to go well. Unfortunately, as this podcast reveals, the arguments on the other side are not confidence-inspiring. Okay, I think that's all there is to say, but I want to extend an open invite to David Shapiro. Seem like a smart guy, and I would love to just talk about our different views. I think you might be talking with Yoop from PauseAI. If so, that's amazing, and I hope that's a great conversation, but you're also welcome here anytime on Doom Debates.